Moving along on a halftime Thursday here, joined by Bob Holt, the one and only from the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Bob, it is Thursday. We're a little earlier than usual since the show starts 1 hour earlier now, 11 to 1. What's going on with you today?
Okay, I thought we were having daylight savings or something.
Oh, gosh, that happens next month, doesn't it? Get pushed back, so this is going to screw us up again.
Yeah, I guess it happens in October usually. I remember when I was a kid, it was always hard to adjust to waking up earlier. Spring forward, push back, fall back. Yeah, that's what it was. But I don't know if it comes as a shock to you guys. I'm working at home today.
It's just another day. That's right. You know, I don't know where you come in on this too, but I would like to do away with the whole daylight savings. Let's just be an hour earlier all the time. I don't understand this whole moving the clock back and forth based upon what used to be agrarian society. That's not what we are anymore. I know this is a sports show, and here I am going off on daylight savings time.
Yeah, I think isn't it Indiana that never changes?
Yeah, that's right.
So I don't know. Maybe
exactly
that could
right.
become a campaign issue or something. You know, I don't know.
Let's see. Bob, you wrote about Bo Limmer a couple of days ago. We were talking about Bo with a couple of other people. I'd asked if maybe he was the surprise of the offensive line on camp. The answer was no, probably Brady Latham is more the surprise of camp. Limmer, I think the coaching staff, once they got to know him a little bit and realized that this kid, in their own words, is the nastiest guy on the team, I mean, that's a guy you want on the offensive line. So maybe it's not that much of a surprise. What'd you learn about Bo Limmer while writing about him?
Well, yeah, he's had a really good camp. He was a guy who, you know, with the new rule they passed last year, you could play in 4 games. So he got limited reps. But he was a guy I really, you know, and I hadn't studied, you know, film or anything, but I remember thinking, well, he's probably a little young to break into the starting lineup. But, you know, the coaches are really, teammates have been, you know, very high on him. And, you know, the coach, I think it was Kendall Browse talked about his consistency, that you always know what you're going to get from him, you know. You're talking about Limmer, right?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I'm afraid I'm going to write Brady Limmer sometimes. Those guys mixed up, but and he's been pretty versatile, of course. I know he's worked some at center, some at guard. I think he's worked both guard spots and center. And also, he was listed at 293 on the roster, which was his weight last year. And I thought that was a little odd because they'd really been talking about all the linemen putting on weight. And then looking back at Kendall Brow's quote, he says he's about 305. So I don't know if that's the correction they need to make or what. But, you know, in the end, in this COVID era we're in, hopefully it's not an era. That's a bad choice of words. But you know, you need depth. Depth is more important than ever. They've always cross-trained offensive linemen. You know, you had guards play center and got tackles and guards and all this stuff. But yeah, I think he's been a pleasant surprise. I mean, based on what I was expecting. I'm sure he had high expectations for himself, but by all accounts, it sounds like he's going to be a starter. So he's had a really nice camp for him.
Captains were named yesterday. Each, you know, I think having a real reason why their teammates voted them captains, all different reasons, and all have seems, you know, something to prove in one way or another. With Feleipe Franks, Rakeem Boyd, Grant Morgan, Jonathan Marshall. Sometimes it's a matter, you know, we oversimplified thinking that these are supposed to be the most vocal leaders, but then, you know, Coach Pittman mentions yesterday on the radio show, I mean, Jonathan Marshall didn't even want to say anything to the team after he was voted captain. He wants to do his talking on the field. It looks to me like you've got a pretty diverse group of leadership styles amongst these 14 captains.
Yeah, well, I think it's a good sign. If I would have guessed Feleipe Franks, even though he's a newcomer, I thought he would probably be a captain because he's kind of been the odds-on favorite to be the quarterback. I mean, the coaches said it was his job to lose, and apparently he hasn't anything to do that. So I think anytime your quarterback is a captain, that's big. I think it's kind of telling that Arkansas didn't have a quarterback be a team captain the previous 2 years because they didn't really know who the quarterback was going to be. I don't think they really felt strongly about, well, this is the guy, and I think they feel very strongly that Feleipe Franks is the guy. So that's a natural leadership position. Rakeem Boyd. I don't think he's a a guy that talks a ton either. I think he's more of a, sets the example, but I'm sure he'll get on guys if need be. And then, Marshall's pretty quiet. It was funny what Sam said about him. And then, Morgan's the exact opposite. He says a lot of stuff. So I think it's a good mixture. You wouldn't want to have 4 quiet guys, even if they were very well respected in the locker room. And maybe you don't need to have 4 guys that say a whole lot. But I think you have a good mixture. You obviously have 2 defense, 2 offense. That's what you want. But, I think it looks like a pretty good group to me. And obviously those are the guys that their teammates, feel strongly about and respect a lot.
Speaking to Bob Holt here on Halftime, Bob, I want to get your thoughts real quick on the Big Ten returning to action with the 8-week schedule. I mean, they left themselves little to no room for error if a COVID outbreaks happen or need to postpone a game for whatever reason. But now with the Big Ten returning, does this make this college football season as a whole more legitimate? And I say that just because we've thrown around the phrase like an asterisk champion of what the 3 power conferences that we're still going to play. Is it more legitimate now with the Big Ten playing?
I think it probably is, although I didn't think, like a playoff would be a joke or whatever. You didn't have the Big Ten. I mean, obviously Ohio State's been a big time playoff team and won a title, I think in 2014. The Pac-12, all due respect, great states, great universities. I mean, I was looking this up the other day. I think in 6 years, the 4 playoff teams, that's 24, I think. You've had 1 Pac-12 team. Washington was in the playoff and got beat by Alabama, I think, in the semis. So, and of course, they have a lot more. I mean, the pandemic's enough to worry about. Now, West, they're dealing with these terrible wildfires. So, I saw where they're going to try to. It sounds like they want to try to play 2 now. I just don't know about with the air quality and stuff out there. I don't know. I think it legitimizes the season more, but I don't think it was going to be like an illegitimate season as a term, because you look at, SEC and Clemson have really been the power brokers for the most part in college football lately. So if it would have been, Ohio State's a national title contender. Big Ten's got other good teams, obviously, but, I think it adds to the season, but I don't think it was going to be a bad season without the Big Ten,
I really enjoyed your piece and what you've been doing on Whole Hog Sports and talking about the best Hogs in the NBA. Really enjoyed your piece over Joe Johnson. Just one of those NBA guys, one of those just legendary basketball players that, I mean, he might have regressed talently, but he's still one of the most productive basketball players in the world when he did it in the NBA. He did it in the big 3-on-3 league that was happening, and then here recently in the basketball tournament. So I really enjoyed what you wrote about him. So what's next for Joe Johnson? Is there a return in the NBA on the horizon? Is he ready to call it a career yet?
I don't think he's done playing. He said that after the TBT, I don't want to say BTB, after the basketball tournament, he said some teams reached out to him, one specific, but indicated, they'd like him to maybe, have tryouts for next season. I'm a little surprised somebody didn't add him for the bubble because, somebody else pointed this out to me that the bubble is in Orlando. There's a perfect situation for older players. I mean, Joe obviously keeps himself in great shape, but you don't have to travel. I mean, what wears players out more than anything, probably besides playing, obviously, but, traveling, getting into cities at 3 a.m. and getting to hotels at 4 a.m. and all this. But, yes, I still think he can play. Darrell Walker said he should be on a roster right now. And Joe indicated, he might have an option with an NBA team. He talked about going overseas and playing. I mean, I can see him, going overseas and being a great player. Or he said also there are teams that are talking to him about coaching and scouting. So he's going to be doing something with basketball. I think that's safe to say. And if he wants to play, I think there's going to be some team in the world that wants Joe Johnson.
Bob, before we let you go, did you see baseball commissioner Rob Manfred said that he's in favor of expanded baseball playoffs? Now, I don't know if that necessarily means that we're going to have this format in the future where you have 8 teams in each league get there, which I think is just an absolutely horrendous idea. If you want to expand the playoffs, what you're doing is you're devaluing the regular season to the point where teams won't try to compete in the regular season the way that they usually do. I hate the idea of further expanding the baseball playoffs any more than they were. What do you think?
Yeah, I think if we got back to normalcy, of course, I'm old school. The Tigers and the Cardinals both winning the pennant or whatever. The Pirates and the Yankees both winning the pennant. I think with all the teams, let's face it, we don't have 8-team leagues anymore. But yeah, I think if you make baseball playoffs like hockey or the NBA, like you say, you really are devaluing the regular season. And even though you may get a home field advantage, although that's not going to happen this year, obviously, in baseball. But I think you're going to end up where you're having teams that are really not World Series type teams might get hot and break in there because they got hot at the right time, and a team that won 100 games doesn't make the World Series, and a team that won 88 does, or something. So yeah, I hope that when this pandemic gets over, we can get back to 9-inning games and starting extra innings with nobody on, and things like that. But yeah, I really don't want to see Major League Baseball become the NHL or the NBA in terms of playoffs.
I agree with you there, Bob. We'll leave it there. Next Thursday again, 11:30 in the morning. I'll make sure I send a text. Thanks again, as always, man. We appreciate you.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay, you guys take care.
Just never forget this. There are 15 teams in the American and the National League. That means the 8th best team is the 7th worst team. That doesn't belong in the playoffs. Hey, if you have sleep apnea, and if you're tired of dealing with a CPAP every night, noise, constant cleaning, your wife says she can't take the noise anymore, Dr. Bo Sparkman at Family Dental Care of Fort Smith can help you with sleep apnea with a custom dental appliance that allows you to get rid of that annoying CPAP. Dr. Sparkman has years of experience, treated hundreds of patients just like you. You can call for an appointment, 785-1419. That's 785-1419. Get rid of your CPAP and take care of your sleep apnea with Family Dental Care of Fort Smith. And we wrap the first hour up after this break.